At my brother's graduation, I wasn't on the guest list. After 6 years, $48,000, 3 maxed cards, and a pawn medal to pay his rent. I stood alone while they clapped for him. Then he laughed from the mic. "Welcome, Admiral Miles," mocking my discharge, my limp, my sacrifice. I didn't cry. I took notes. Internships he never completed, records I once hid. Today, I sent the truth to the board. Next week, he won't be a doctor. But I will fly. Hello everyone. Welcome to your channel, Panda Tales. Before we dive into today's story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories. Let's get into it. I used to believe that sacrifice guaranteed love. That if you gave enough of yourself, eventually, someone would see you, acknowledge you. I was wrong. The morning I found out Zane was graduating med school, I stood in the aisle of a Walmart, holding a pack of clearance socks, and cried. Not because of the socks, but because I remembered when I bought his first stethoscope. It was $42.79. I had to pawn my Navy watch to get it. He was 19 then. Shaky hands, nervous smile, and he kept saying, "You really think I can do this?" I didn't just think he could. I bet everything on it. Over 6 years, I paid for his tuition, his rent, his textbooks, and that overpriced organic tea he claimed helped him focus. I even helped him move cross-country for a summer program. Paid for the U-Haul, loaded every box myself, then drove 14 hours overnight because he had an exam the next day. I covered over $48,000 in expenses without a single co-signer, interest-free. My Navy re-enlistment? Delayed indefinitely. My back? Still sore from lifting furniture that wasn't mine. And now? His graduation was next week. But there was no text from Zane. No invite. Just an Instagram story from one of his med school friends. Graduation week hype. I swiped up, saw a group photo with him front and center, and paused. Everyone had lanyards. Program passes. Badges with names. Everyone but me. I figured maybe it got lost in the mail. Maybe he was planning a surprise. Or maybe, deep down, I already knew. I called Mom. She answered, unusually chipper. "Hey, it's next weekend, right? Zane's big day." Silence. Then, "Oh yeah? Didn't he tell you?" "No. What time does it start?" Another pause. "I think he said guests need to be there by 9. You probably don't need to worry about coming, sweetie. It's limited seating." Limited seating? I felt that like a slap. After all I did, was I now limited? I tried to laugh. "Mom, I paid for this. I'm going." She sighed. "Well, don't make it about you, okay? He's under a lot of pressure. Don't be dramatic." That line, "Don't be dramatic." Every time they gaslit me, every time they minimized me, it always came wrapped in those 3 words. I hung up and stared at the ceiling for an hour. Then I opened my drawer and took out the one pressed shirt I had left from my Navy days. Still crisp, still folded. I laid it out on my bed. Wrinkled pride and fabric-thin dignity. I checked the university website. The ceremony location was posted. I marked it on my calendar. I wasn't going to wait for an invite. I was going to show up. Because if they wanted to pretend I wasn't family, they'd have to say it to my face. The night before the ceremony, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the floor of my small San Diego apartment, watching the second hand tick past midnight on a cracked wall clock. My uniform shirt, blue, crisp, and just a little too tight now, hung on a wire hanger like a ghost of who I used to be. I had questions I'd never dared ask. Why hadn't Zane called? Why had Mom sounded so rehearsed? At 2 a.m., I opened a folder I kept under my bed. It was a graveyard of sacrifices. Receipts from Zane's dorm move-in. Bank transfers labeled spring tuition, $7,900. A PayPal log of $275 for his MCAT prep course. I even found a scribbled note from him in high school. "Thanks for believing in me, bro. I'll make you proud." That note felt like a joke now. By dawn, I was dressed and on the road. I stopped by a Starbucks and grabbed Zane's favorite, chai latte with oat milk. A little pathetic, I know, but part of me still hoped he'd see me in the crowd and smile like he used to. When I arrived at the ceremony, the sun was already blazing, and the parking lot was chaos. Families in suits and dresses poured out of luxury cars. I drove my rusting Toyota Corolla past rows of Range Rovers and Teslas. At the check-in table, a young man with a clipboard asked for my name. Miles. Miles Keller. He scanned the list. Scanned again. Looked up. "Sorry, I don't see your name." I chuckled, trying not to panic. "That's gotta be a mistake. I'm the graduate's brother." He squinted at me. We were told only registered guests are allowed past this point. A knot twisted in my stomach. I paid for his degree, I said without thinking. 6 years of it. The guy blinked. Sir, if you're not on the list. I'm not here for snacks and clapping, I snapped. I'm here because I sacrificed everything for this moment. That caught attention. A woman in a blazer walked over, whispered to the clipboard guy, then pulled me aside. Sir, we need to ask you to wait outside the guest area. Or leave the premises. I stared at her. My face burned. You're saying I can't even watch my brother graduate? That's correct. I looked past her. There he was, Zane. Black robe, gold cords, surrounded by cameras and handshakes. He hadn't seen me. Or maybe he had. I took a step forward. Then he did something I'll never forget. Zane walked to the podium. The crowd hushed. He tapped the mic. I want to thank the people who believed in me, he began. My professors, my mentors, and of course, my family. He scanned the crowd, then smiled. A smug, controlled smile. And I want to give a special shout out to my brother, Admiral Miles. The audience laughed. He knew. He knew I'd be out there, watching. And he mocked my discharge, something that nearly ended my life. He used my broken dream as a joke. A punchline. I froze. I wanted to scream. To charge up there and tell them what he was really made of. Instead, I turned around and walked. But I didn't walk away defeated. I walked with something else boiling inside me. I knew secrets. I knew his secrets. Internships he faked. Rotations I helped him document when he was actually off skiing in Vail. The hospital letters I photoshopped for him, stupidly thinking I was protecting my little brother from burnout. I reached my car and sat there for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the press contact list I never thought I'd use. The day after the ceremony, the betrayal hadn't faded. It calcified. I hadn't slept. I sat at my tiny kitchen table, sipping cold coffee and staring at my laptop screen. The room was still, but my mind was loud. Every memory of sacrifice screamed at me. 6 years of being invisible, traded in for one punchline. Zane thought he could humiliate me and move on. He didn't know I kept everything. I opened a private folder titled ZK Docs, Miles Backup. I'd started it when Zane began lying to residency programs. Just a few small adjustments to dates and hours, back when he was overwhelmed and I thought I was helping. I clicked through the PDFs. A falsified clinical log showing Zane completing 320 hours at St. Jude's internal med rotation. He was in Tahoe that entire month. A glowing reference letter I ghost wrote from a physician who didn't even remember him. Screenshots of our chats where he said, "Bro, if this ever leaks, I'm dead." A Venmo receipt labeled, "Thanks for the favor," right after I edited his personal statement. I took a deep breath and opened my email. Subject line, academic misconduct, residency fraud concerning Zane Keller. Attached, a zip folder of documents, photos, and a timeline I'd built that morning. Recipient, a local reporter known for investigating educational scandals, and the dean of Zane's med school. I didn't expect much. Honestly, I thought they'd delete it. But 5 hours later, the reporter replied. 2 words. Can we talk? That night, I met the journalist, Dana, at a cafe near Balboa Park. She had sharp eyes and a soft voice, the kind that made you feel safe while she flayed you open with questions. She listened as I laid it all out. How I'd worked overtime as a base janitor and warehouse night clerk to keep Zane in school. How I'd sacrificed re-enlistment and my shot at officer training to come home and take care of Mom when Zane couldn't miss a quiz. How I kept covering for him, believing it was temporary. Then I showed her the files, the emails, the text messages, even a voice memo where Zane literally says, "If they ask about July, just say I was shadowing at Kaiser. They never check." She whistled low. He really thought he'd never get caught. He still thinks that, I said. He's probably popping champagne right now. Dana said it would take a few days to verify. But if it checks out, this could explode. As I drove home, I kept one hand on the wheel and the other clenching the edge of my seat. This wasn't just payback. It was correction. Zane had rewritten our story, and I was taking the pen back. 3 days later, the headline dropped. Medical marvel or master manipulator. Rising doctor accused of residency fraud. His name was everywhere. His face, blurred and watermarked, appeared on Reddit threads, Facebook mom groups, and LinkedIn callouts. The med school launched an internal audit. The hospital he matched with for residency released a cold statement. We take allegations seriously and are cooperating fully. Family group chat exploded. Our mom called, furious. What the hell did you do, Miles? What I did. I reported fraud. You just couldn't let him have his moment, could you? She snapped. You've always been jealous. I paid for his moment. I yelled. And he pissed on mine. Then I hung up. That night, I received a DM from Zane. Just 4 words. You ruined my life. I didn't respond. Not yet. I printed the headline. Framed it. Put it next to my bed like a medal. Not out of pride. Out of proof. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't bitter. I was just done being silent. You don't get to this kind of betrayal without a long, slow burn. And mine began the day I put on the uniform, and Zane put his feet on my back to climb higher. Flashback to 2011. I was 20. New boots, fresh buzz cut, terrified and proud. He was 12, lanky and moody, always with headphones in. Dad had bailed on us years ago. Mom was just numb. So I became more than a brother. I became everything. I wrote Zane letters from every base I was stationed at, Kuwait, Okinawa, Virginia. Encouraged him through middle school heartbreaks and high school finals. I even sent him a pair of shoes once, limited edition Nikes, because he said everyone else at school had them, and he felt like a charity case. They cost me 2 weeks' food allowance. Then came the day I got the medical discharge, torn rotator cuff that never healed right. I didn't tell Zane I cried in the VA parking lot. I just told him I'd be home sooner. When I returned, I found him trying to drop out of community college. Why even bother, Miles? It's just a piece of paper. Because it opens doors, Z. And I'll help you. Whatever it takes. I meant it. I picked up every shift I could, cleaning aerospace warehouses during the day, inventory checks at night. I got good at soldering in silence. I funneled almost everything I earned into his tuition. In 6 years, I gave him over $48,000. Rent, books, lab coats, that overpriced cap and gown. He promised he'd make me proud. You'll be front row at my med school graduation, he said once. You earned that. Funny, because 10 years later, I wasn't even on the guest list. Back to present. After the article broke, things didn't get easier. They got weirder. The family split into 2 factions. Half of them texted me privately, whispering, "Good for you." Zane always had a God complex. The other half accused me of sabotage, bitterness, and destroying his career out of spite. They didn't ask what it cost me to be the good brother. One cousin said, "You could have just talked to him," as if I hadn't, for a decade. But I knew what would come next. Zane was a survivor. He'd try to spin it, rebrand, probably blame clerical errors or a misunderstood system. So I did something cold. I posted the full voice memo, the one where he laughed and said, if they knew I was in Cancun while logging trauma hours, I'd be toast. It went viral. He deleted all his social media that night. I watched his Instagram vanish in real time. And still, part of me hated how good that felt. Then came the call. A woman's voice. Calm. Authoritative. Mr. Keller? This is Investigator Reed from the State Medical Licensing Board. I need to confirm a few documents you submitted anonymously. She read through them, one by one. I answered every question. Before she hung up, she paused. You know, this isn't common. But when it happens, when someone lies their way into the medical field, it puts lives at risk. You did the right thing. I said thank you, but I didn't feel heroic. I felt hollow. That night, I walked past the mirror and barely recognized myself. I wasn't the bitter brother. I wasn't a victim either. I was something in between, someone rebuilding. So I did what I hadn't done in years. I logged back into the flight school application portal, the one I'd saved as a draft after my discharge. I reread the essay I'd written. Just because the Navy grounded me doesn't mean I can't fly. I submitted it. The next morning, I got an email. Application received. Status, priority veteran candidate. For the first time in a long time, my future had nothing to do with Zane. The day after my flight school application was accepted, I got a call from my mom. Not a warm one. No, hey, how are you? Just 5 words. What did you do, Miles? I hadn't heard from her in almost 4 months. Not since Zane's graduation stunt. Not since the post went viral. She hadn't reached out when I was humiliated. She didn't check in when the licensing board called him in. But now that her golden boy was spiraling, now she had time. I didn't do anything, I said. I just told the truth. Her silence pressed through the phone like a vacuum. Then she said it. You've always been jealous of him. I had to sit down. Like the words physically knocked me off balance. Jealous? Of Zane. He worked hard, she continued. He made something of himself. You always held him back. You smothered him. You think money makes you a parent? That was it. That was the core. All these years, I thought I was doing what a brother should do. What a man should do. Holding the fort. Being the net. But in her eyes, I had been overstepping. You think I wanted to be his dad? I said, voice cracking. You left me no choice. When you fell apart after Dad, who braided his hair for picture day? Who drove him to baseball practice? Who figured out FAFSA because you said the forms were too stressful? Her voice dropped to a sneer. Zane never asked for a father. He needed a brother. Well, congratulations. Now he has neither. I hung up and blocked her. Later that week, I got a letter from the board. Not an email. An actual envelope, with my name typed neatly on the front. Inside, confirmation of Zane's suspension from his residency. Pending investigation. License status, on hold. No celebration. No relief. Just an ache. I'd spent my entire adulthood protecting him, and the only thing that ever made a dent was letting it all collapse. But then came his message. Zane texted me like nothing had happened. You happy now? You ruined me. After everything I let you do. Let me? I screenshotted it. Saved it. Didn't reply. But then he started calling. 3 times in a row. I answered on the 4th. You said you'd always have my back, he hissed. I was stressed. I didn't mean what I said at the ceremony. It was a joke. No, I said. It was a broadcast. You turned my life into a punchline in front of 200 people. He paused. So that's it. You're done being family. That word again. Family. You made me a footnote in your story, I said. Now I'm just giving you the same role in mine. I hung up. Blocked him too. But he wasn't done. A week later, I got a delivery. A manila folder. No note. Just a flash drive inside. And when I plugged it into my laptop, my jaw dropped. Video footage. Recordings. From years ago. Old clips I'd taken on my phone while tutoring Zane for biology. His early college presentations. Us rehearsing interview questions in our crappy 2-bedroom apartment. At the end of the last file was a title card. To my brother, who built my wings. Turns out, he'd started making a tribute video for me. One he never posted. One he'd never finished. But he'd kept it. It should have softened me. But instead, it made the grief sharper. Because the truth is, Zane knew. Deep down, he knew what I did for him. He just didn't think it was worth respecting out loud. Not until it was too late. But I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't out for more revenge. I just wanted freedom. So I logged out of everything. Closed every message thread. Took a walk along the harbor in San Diego, breathing in salt and silence. The VA office confirmed my grant covered the full flight school tuition. I got my ID badge the next day. As I clipped it to my shirt, a thought hit me. This time, I'm flying for me. Flight school smelled like metal, jet fuel, and second chances. I arrived early, as always, wearing a fresh polo shirt and carrying nothing but a notepad and the chipped mug I'd used back when I stayed up at 3 a.m. helping Zane with anatomy quizzes. The mug said rise, roar, repeat. First day was all about orientation. They walked us through simulator protocols, airfield clearance, emergency landing drills. The thrill in my chest was real, electric, like I'd finally stepped into a story that I got to write. For once, I wasn't someone's support beam. I was the main structure. But then, right before lunch, a name on the class roster caught my eye. Aaron Callow. That name might mean nothing to you, but to me, it was a live wire straight to my past. Aaron had been in my Navy unit. He was there the day I got injured during training ops, the day my knee gave out, and I was deemed unfit for further service. While most of the guys moved on, Aaron, he told a different version of events. He told people I faked it, that I took the easy way out, that I sabotaged a drill to avoid being deployed. I hadn't seen him since the day I limped out of base housing with a duffel bag and a discharge file. So imagine the chill when he stepped into the classroom, full uniform-style confidence, and smirked when he saw me. Well, if it isn't Captain Collapse, he said under his breath as he passed. The other students didn't get it, but I did. My palms clenched so tight, my pen cracked. Aaron sat 2 rows in front of me. Every time I looked up from my notes, I caught him glancing back, that grin never fading. Break time came. We had 20 minutes before the flight simulation module. I stayed seated, but Aaron didn't. He made his way to me, leaned on my desk like we were old friends, and said, "Didn't expect to see you here, Miles." I thought you'd be. I don't know, coaching Little League or still crying over your discharge. I looked him dead in the eyes. People like you always thought pain was weakness. That's why you never learned anything from it. He chuckled. Still the poet. I didn't flinch. Still the coward. His face shifted for just a second. Something dark flickered. But then he smiled again and walked away. That night, I dug through my old files. I had every document from my discharge, every medical report, even the drill cam footage from the day my leg went out. I'd archived it all, not out of obsession, but because I knew someday I might need to defend the truth. I backed it up. Twice. Once on my hard drive. Once in the cloud. Because Aaron? He didn't just talk. He lied for sport. Day 3 of flight school, the instructors announced team pairings for simulation drills. And wouldn't you know it, Aaron and I got paired together. It wasn't even subtle. He grinned like it was divine comedy. You sure your knee won't give out mid-sim? He said, loud enough for the others to hear. I didn't answer. Because this time, I wasn't going to fight him with words. I was going to fly better than he ever had. We got into the simulation cockpit. He took lead. I ran comms. It was a standard emergency reroute drill. Engine failure scenario, high-pressure landing. 10 minutes in, Aaron veered off protocol. Got cocky. Tried a maneuver that wasn't in the playbook. I warned him. Twice. He ignored me. We crashed the sim. Alarm bells rang. Instructor came running in. What happened? Aaron didn't even hesitate. Miles didn't adjust throttle in time. I gave him the cue. The instructor raised a brow. Miles, your take. I didn't argue. I didn't protest. Instead, I calmly pulled out my phone and opened the synced headset logs. Here's the audio, I said. I warned him at timestamp 8:13 and again at 8:31. He never acknowledged either. Instructor played it. Silence. Then, Aaron, you're off drills until further notice. Aaron stormed out. Back in my dorm that night, I got a text from an unknown number. You're still the same petty, jealous grunt. You can't stand that I made it, and you didn't. You think this place will fix you? You're broken, Miles. I read the messages once. Deleted them. Then I opened my journal and wrote one sentence. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means flying with scars. Graduation week. 12 of us left in the program. After months of drills, sleepless nights, and reliving old wounds with every engine ignition, it was time for our solo flights. One pass across the San Diego coast, logged and graded. Fly clean, and you're certified. I woke up that morning with a note slipped under my door. No name. Just one sentence written in blue Sharpie. Even birds get shot out of the sky. I didn't need a signature to know who it was from. Aaron hadn't spoken to me in 3 weeks, not since the simulation fallout that got him benched. He wasn't getting his wings. And from what I'd overheard, a formal investigation into his previous Navy records had reopened because of his pattern of misconduct. I didn't reply. I just folded the note and stuck it in my chest pocket. That day, the air on base was charged, electric, restless. Families gathered by the observation deck. Flags waved. Cheering parents snapped photos of their kids stepping into cockpits. But I stood alone. I wasn't expecting anyone. That's why I froze when I saw him leaning against a silver rental car at the edge of the airfield. Zane, my brother, clean-shaven, designer suit, aviators, the image of someone who still had everything to lose. And still, somehow, not a single apology on his face. I thought maybe he came to finally own up. Maybe he'd had time to think. Maybe the public fallout over his revoked residency had knocked something loose in his pride. But then he walked over with a smirk that made my stomach twist. I figured you'd want someone here to clap, he said casually, like nothing had ever happened. Besides, I had to see if they'd really give wings to a washed-up corpseman with a limp. My jaw clenched. You lost the right to comment on my path the day you turned my pain into a punchline. He scoffed, still holding on to that. It was a joke, Miles. Grow up. A joke that cost you everything. I shot back. He flinched, but only for a second. Then he laughed. It cost me nothing. I'll be back in another program by fall. You think this little flight of yours scares me? No, I said. But the email I just scheduled to send might. He went pale. I continued. I kept everything. The forged internship letters, the ghost-signed hours, the emails you asked me to edit when you thought your GPA might not hold. I've already shared them with 2 reporters. One call from them to the licensing board and your future in medicine won't just be on hold. It'll be dead. He stepped closer. You wouldn't. I looked him dead in the eye. You made your career off my silence. This is me getting loud. Before he could say another word, I turned and walked toward the runway. The plane roared to life beneath me. As I rose above the coastline, the world below shrank to dots and shapes. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about who I'd disappointed or what I'd sacrificed. I was thinking about what came next. Freedom wasn't some metaphor. It was altitude, velocity, control. But the peace didn't last long. 15 minutes into the flight, my radio buzzed. It was base control. Miles, we have a breach near the fence line. Someone entered restricted ground. Approaching the runway. Do not attempt landing until we clear it. My heart sank. I circled. Twice. Then 3 times. And finally, through the clouds, I saw the chaos below. Zane, running across the grass like a lunatic, waving both arms, shouting something into the wind. Security tackled him. Sirens flashed. They pulled him off the field before I landed. And when I touched down, the commanding officer met me personally. He said he had to stop you, the officer said. Said you had something that could ruin his life. I had the truth, I answered. And that was enough. Weeks later, I got my wings. Aaron, dishonorably removed from the program. The Navy confirmed what I knew all along. He'd falsified multiple reports to climb ranks. Zane, his medical license inquiry turned into a full-blown criminal review. Charges are still pending. But me? I now fly 3 times a week for a civilian aerospace firm. I'm finally using my training not just to survive, but to soar. And yesterday, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. No apology. Just a single line, typed on plain white paper. You were the better man, even when I made you feel small. I folded it, placed it beside my old Navy tags, and whispered to myself. I didn't need the rank. I just needed the truth. Have you ever given your all for someone who turned your loyalty into a joke? Drop your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe.